So I went ahead and watched all the Superman live action films back to back, and what I found across 74 years is how absurdly consistent his values are. In his first film, I'm not joking, Superman protects someone whose home was disrupted by Americans digging for oil.
Don't forget, you invaded his world. You sank a pipe 6 miles into the ground. And when he climbed up, you set dogs on him, shot him.
Furthermore, he then has to take away people's guns.
Whoever fired that shot came close to killing Miss Lane. Obviously, none of you can be trusted with guns.
Which leads to him beating the crowd up with his bare hands to protect a mole man receiving care at a hospital who didn't want to accept him. All while the other mole man has a stupidly long chase. Like, what the fuck is still going on? The allegory for racism is extremely blatant.
Benson wants to hang him.
Oh no.
So, it's turning into a real lynch mob.
As a result, Superman isn't characterized as a godlike being or even a superhero in a traditional sense, where he's here to fight a supervillain. He's instead an Atticus Finch-like voice of reason, who's protecting victims of prejudice with reason.
They look strange to us, it's true. We must look just as strange to them, but as far as we know, they don't mean us any harm.
Thus, what makes Superman's superpowers valuable is how they protect him as a communicator. The angry mob, motivated by blind hatred, may not be able to put up a logical rebuttal, so they're gonna resort to shooting, but the bullets bounce right off. So in the end, Superman is so fed up that he respects the mole men more than the humans, and we close on the message about the importance of respecting other people's way of life.
You live your lives, and we'll live ours.
This film came out in 1951. I wasn't expecting to be bored because it's a black and white movie starring dad bod Superman, but I loved it. Every recognizable element of Superman is here, even Lois being a tough vocal woman standing up loyally next to him.
What are you hiding?
Hiding?
All this made me appreciate just how perhaps American sensibilities may shift in terms of who's called the enemy from within. Superman, like a firefighter or a doctor, helps everyone indiscriminately. He's not here to punish, he's not even here to judge. He's here to save people regardless of their position.
You saved my life. That's more than you deserve.
As a result, it's Superman's simplicity that allows him to thrive under times of hardship, because his message for almost 100 years is so consistent, and thus you can feel it in your gut when you look at him. Help everyone, even if you're not allowed to.
Get out of that doorway. It's men like you that make it difficult for people to understand one another.
Something changing your mind.
You wouldn't treat a dog that way.
Superman the movie's boring, is what you'd say if you were hit on the head. In Man of Steel, Krypton is a hellscape. Jor-El screams,
I warned you. Harvesting the core was suicide.
but the council is too scared to seek any ecological alternative, while Zod interrupts for his hostile takeover. The last days of Krypton is the last days of a society where even if it didn't explode, it would have descended into chaos.
Think a better world than ours, Cal.
In Superman the movie, Krypton is an idealized civilization. Jor-El sentences Zod, which establishes that it's a just place, where these higher beings punish those for violence, hatred, and irresponsibility.
Perversions and unreasoning hatred of all mankind have threatened even the children of the planet Krypton.
And unlike Man of Steel, the Council aren't too cowardly to act, instead they're just too arrogant.
I tell you, Krypton is simply shifting its orbit.
These differences is crucial because Krypton isn't irredeemable, because despite their hubris, their accomplishments are still worthy of idolization, which is anchored by the beautiful, sweeping John Williams score and this amazing speech from Jor-El, where clearly Marlon Brando is reading off a piece of paper next to the baby because his eye lines don't match. Kansas is also given the same grand scope where there are these massive sweeping shots that mythologize everything with nostalgia that's crucial for the film's equilibrium.
You know, we'd always worried during the production whether we'd succeeded in bringing Superman to life. Because making people believe that a man could fly wasn't really the hardest part of making the film. I mean, we all know that Superman can leap over tall buildings, but the question is, could he leap over the generation gap since those early Siegel and Schuster days? We wanted to know if a man from the innocent 30s could survive in the post-Watergate 70s.
For a film made in 1978, it's actually very postmodern in its self-awareness. Did you know the film doesn't actually open on Krypton, but with curtains revealing a cover of Action Comics where a child narrates the story of the American Great Depression of 1938.
Even the great city of Metropolis was not spared the ravages of the worldwide depression.
He's a lot of what America once was a long time ago. I'm a very liberal human being in my philosophies and my politics, and I find myself, in an odd sort of way, looking and respecting the conservative attitude of what Superman stands for now. because I think I see a lot of my philosophies in application now, and I'm not very happy with them, and I almost wish I could go back to what once was, and what America once was.
You see, the philosophy of the film is not to update the material, but to educate people on how to appreciate it. To speak to everyone's inner child, if you will. In fact, the first line from a character in the film is literally,
This is no fantasy, no careless product of wild imagination.
As a result, by preparing you with the vibes of a bygone time, it's able to bypass the cynicism of the present, as opposed to a compromised Superman with edge. One problem though is that Jonathan Kent's death is just too unrealistic. He dies from a heart failure that's foreshadowed in the beginning of the film, a death that teaches young Clark to value life, or even
powers. And I couldn't even save him.
Thus inspiring him to finally leave home and discover who he is as he's drawn to Jor-El's crystal. What a load of bullshit. Obviously it would have been better if Jonathan died from a tornado, because that's the only way you can kill him. As Martha prepares breakfast, where the Cheerio logo can be perfectly red despite being so dark, and then it's also perfectly readable on the other side, Clark shares a moment experienced by every young person.
Always remember it.
The purpose of all of this, Krypton, Americana, then going up north, is to deepen the immigrant connotations that's baked into Superman's character. Being from Kansas is only half of him, and it's here where the difference between the Kryptons creates the most maddening differences. In Man of Steel, Krypton's legacy is not inspirational, it's a point of shame. Thus, Kal's mission is entirely tied to Jor-El, who specifically wants him to lead Earth differently, so people will look to the stars as opposed to be destroyed by their own environment. He even specifically said he'd stay to die just to ensure no part of Krypton lives on, which seems a bit overdramatic and doesn't make any sense.
Your mother, Lara, and I were a product of the failures of our world as much as Zod was, tied to its fate.
As a result, Kal-El has no interest in his heritage or has any existential concerns among being with his people from his home. It's a shithole, we see it's a shithole, Jor-El tells his son it's a shithole, Zod is evidence that it's a shithole, so Kal, dooming them to extinction, isn't something he flinches at. In contrast, in Superman the movie, it's the opposite. Jor-El wasn't a rebel, he was the best part of Krypton, and he gives his son the history and education of a civilization so far ahead of Earth that its wisdom transforms Clark into Superman, so he can guide everyone else to greatness. This is the other half of Clark.
Always hold in your heart the pride, your special heritage. You are revealed to the world. Very well. So be it.
What sets Superman apart is that he has the wisdom to use his power for good. He has all these powers, but he's got the kind of maturity, or he's got the innocence, really, to look at the world very, very simply. And that's what makes him so different. When he says, I'm here to fight for truth, justice, and the American way, everybody goes, you know, but he's not kidding.
After this point, the film radically changes in tone. Instead of being big in scope and mythical in its score, now we're in the big city that's wild, shot intimately, with careful attention to the characters and visual gags that completely re-energizes the film. Otis and Lex has a goofy trumpet theme, and the Daily Planet's introduction is just awesome, where it's shown through Jimmy's camera, ending on Lois's smile. So without exposition, we understand everything. It's a busy world filled with good, lively people. Furthermore, rewatching this film, I had a real revelation with Clark's bumbling persona. It's not just a strategy here, it has 4 distinct purposes. A, it's a product of Superman's inherent humility. With all his might, he's clearly just enjoying life as a fool, so others can be more comfortable. B, he's an outsider in an environment where everyone knows each other, so he's playing up dumb so people can get used to him faster, even if it means people are explaining simple things to him. C, it's explicit character development. Young Clark is like young Peter Parker, a dude who gets cucked so he just wants revenge. But Jonathan told him he has a greater purpose. Then Jor-El sent him off on it. Now he's a man completely freed of any ego. And D, it plays into the broader theme. Arrogance and hubris were these distinct qualities that led to Krypton's destruction, and Lex has these qualities himself.
Our destruction could have been avoided but for the vanity of some who consider us indestructible.
Clark's bumblingness highlights just how far wiser he really is than them. The rest of the second act works hard to make you believe, and it does so by making you smile so hard at the magic that you forget about the whys. Superman saves Lois. Everyone cheers. When everyone asks who he is, he just says he's a friend. He's wearing the House of L while speaking with the same friendly small town attitude as Jonathan. The son has become the father. Then the film just simply performs all the tropes, going as far as having him save a cat. These moments are just fun. Big or small, everyone is Superman's friend, and everyone is comically speechless, which is just perfect in terms of balancing awe and whimsy. It's crucial to understand Superman the movie did all of this to effectively introduce and win a new audience back in 1978 by asking them to
fly. Don't look, just fly.
Whereas Man of Steel is about competing in an established culture by one-upping it from spectacle to its dramatic seriousness. It uses Metropolis, the Daily Planet, Lois Lane, but it never really goes deeper than their utility, and it's precisely because it couldn't make the necessary tonal switch. Instead, Man of Steel has to lock Superman at a distance, where he's only viewable through the emotions and awes of the others, like Jor-El, Lois, or even a random priest. His thoughts are largely a mystery, as he does more listening than speaking.
How do you find someone who has spent a lifetime covering his tracks?
In contrast, the joy here is an expression of Superman's feeling, the joy in being in a new place with new relationships, the joys of helping people. It's all about adding humanity to the god, not in terms of tears and screaming, but in terms of smiles. The papers are now all over Superman, but he has his eyes on Lois, and the interview is thus a secret date, and he's a real gentleman. Superman jokes about his height, and she asks if he splurges or he eats you-know-what.
Yes, I do. When I'm hungry.
You do?
And you can sense the old country boy is still in there from the way he holds his hands, but he's also very clearly a proud immigrant, telling her about Krypton, then shows off his gifts.
What's your background? Where do you hail from?
Well, it's kind of hard to explain, actually. See, I'm from, well, pretty far away. Another galaxy, as a matter of fact. I come from a planet called Krypton.
Huh?
Clark Kent is a mask designed to fit in, like an immigrant dressing and acting in accordance to their new home, while Superman is the heritage of this immigrant. He wears the clothes, carries the pride and talents from his old home, and takes great joy in introducing someone to it. This whole flight sequence is the equivalent to a foreign boy showing their date food of their people or something.
You can fly. You belong in the sky. You and I could belong to each other.
It's beautiful, like genuinely, and she comes up with the name Superman from what she just experienced. Then Clark arrives for their date. She's totally distracted and unimpressed. He smiles with his glasses off as Superman. But then he looks back at his glasses and is in tears by her reaction. He's ready to tell her, but she saunters on and he's back to normal Clark. This moment is what Man of Steel lacks on a pacing level, because you have to indulge in order to believe. The third act is kind of the weakest. Lex finally enacts his plans, in which the film turns into straight up slapstick for a while. But then we get this amazing tracking shot where Superman is caught. He's then bamboozled. By the way, I was ready to scoff at the film's dated effects, but they actually really hold up because it's carefully constructed. The shots, the sound effects, the cuts, and music, they all work to flood you with so much energy that you're too excited to be bothered. And none of the faker shots ever last long enough for you to inspect them. But then you get to the point where the movie really suddenly goes for it. Lois is dead. For the first time you're hit with this heaviness, a weight crushing down on you. He screams and flies so far into the sky that all his textures are gone. He can hear voices, Jor-El forbidding him once again about interfering with human history, then Jonathan reminding him of a greater purpose, and his younger self saying how with all his powers he couldn't save anyone. So he flies back in time as an act of defiance, but not out of foolishness, but out of responsibility to someone alive, not a ghost. It's a moment where he becomes greater than the boy at his father's funeral, and greater than the child listening to his father. He is the master of his own destiny now. It's also just straight up goofy. He could have just screamed and then Lois woke up. In fact, this climax was supposed to be saved for Superman 2, but they thought it would be more spectacular here. Anyway, Superman brings Otis and Lex to prison, who reveals his big bald head, and the warden of the prison industrial complex is like, the country's in your debt or something. And Superman is like, we're on the same team, I expect a cut from your prison profits, before flying off and famously smiling at the camera as he passes. Superman the movie is a careful pastiche using many different symbolic sources to build its pop culture mythology with gravitas. What's crazy is how fully formed it is in its coherence and confidence. Everything from casting, the way it expertly changes in tone and style from an epic to funny to drama, something which bizarrely enough the genre would begin to struggle in modern day. The film is a true epic following a life from baby to boy to man, but all the way through it, it's also about this page. The magic of Superman the movie is not unlike what Nolan would eventually do with Batman Begins, where it carefully synchronizes the titular hero's existence as both a biographical tale and a symbol. It's the dream of 1930s America. Man of Steel's patriotism came from its symbols of the military and its connotations of service and power, because it was deeply influenced by the DoD, but here patriotism is a bit more abstract. It's a symbol of old-timey-wimey Americana, truth in relations to responsible journalism, justice in terms of small-town attitude of just simply treating people with fairness, and the American way in terms of a nostalgic version of a pre-Watergate and Vietnam world. It's the best movie ever made, and I'm not even American. Superman 1 and 2 were shot at the same time, so as the first came out to critical acclaim and huge profits, what do? You fire Richard Donner for going over budget and taking too long, and then get work for hire Richard Lester to finish the remaining 30%. But he knew he couldn't pull off the mythical style, so he added in more comedy and action. Gene Hackman refused to come back, and Marlon Brando sued for pay disputes.
You know, took the $2 million and ran, you know? Yeah.
Thus, all his finished scenes were cut, and it took 26 years later for them to be seen through the Richard Donner cut, which unfortunately is more of an approximation than anything. Certain set pieces simply just weren't shot, so what you have is the bare bones arc, a tragic love story that deconstructs the first film's mythical grandiosity by asking precisely, what is it that Superman himself wants from his life?
Will there ever come a time when I've served enough? At least I get a chance for happiness. I only ask as much, no more.
In which, as Zod and his powers are freed from the Phantom Zone, Lois and Clark have a perfect few days together, far from everything, giving Zod the opportunity to take over, starting from the moon, to a small town, to the White House. There's this moment on TV where he starts screaming at Superman, it's hilarious. Zod! To complete as much of the Donner cut as possible, they went as far as stitching together various Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder audition tapes.
The toughest thing to look at, and that is the scenes I wanted to shoot that they wouldn't let me.
However, ironically, it's precisely the scene why I'm only referring to the Donner cut for this essay, because the moment where Superman looks at his glasses in the first film, realizing Clark will never be enough for Lois, that's what's directly paid off here. Clark finally confronts her.
Well, darn it, I don't have anything to apologize for. I'm a good reporter. No, I'm a very good reporter. And an even better friend to you.
But she teases him because ultimately she knows the truth, and she fires a gun.
The blank?
Whereas in the lesser cut, he trips randomly. The love between Lois and Superman in this version is always doomed because, in keeping with the mythical scope, being Superman should transcend romantic love.
Yours is a happiness, the fulfillment of your mission, the inspiration you must have felt.
But the happiness Lois gives him is stronger, so he lets go of his responsibilities as the last son of Krypton to live out the rest of his life as a human. On one hand, it's presented almost like a childish distraction, which is anchored by how Jor-El begs him to think about this.
You must have felt that happiness within you.
Because not only will the last of his heritage be gone, but all the potential of humanity will be left untapped. The grace and achievements Krypton reached at their pinnacle was supposed to be the course Superman would put humanity on.
We had, of course, no death penalty.
As a result, humanity is now vulnerable to whatever tyrant or narcissist stands up and takes control. But on the other hand, it shows Superman's maturity as someone who's not seduced by the benefits of his godlike powers. He's not like Zod or his powers.
Father, I love her.
It's through regret that Clark completes his journey, because to regain his powers, the cost is Jor-El's crystal. It's through this mistake Superman becomes a true adult. There's no one else for him to listen to. The son has truly become the father, and the father has truly become the son.
My son.
All while Zod is quite literally the worst of Krypton, the only criminals who couldn't be rehabilitated after the hateful insurrection. So it's kind of obvious that they would be paired up with Lex, who offers up Superman in exchange for Australia.
Australia.
After the situation with these douchebags are dealt with, Lois promises Superman's secret is safe with her.
I know that, Lois.
He believes her. And that's kind of where the movie should have ended. But in the theatrical cut, very famously, Superman erases her memory via a kiss. In this version, he reverses time. Donner has said if he was allowed to finish the movie, he would have come up with something else. But I'd argue there's something oddly poetic about the idea that he uses his powers this time to, instead of doing something for himself,
It is forbidden for you to interfere in human.
he does it for everyone else. The dead, the destruction, everything is restored. Which begs to question why they even bother destroying the fortress at all. But all that's left now is the experience. And so, Clark gets Lois a pizza on a normal day. Her story is about Superman taking his day off. These films were Donner's baby. The crew were loyal to him, and he had a vision that would have moved on to Superman 3, 4, and even more, all built around the magic between Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve. However, the Lester cut was also financially successful and got strong reviews, so the world sadly moved on. But that also means before a Superman trilogy could even be completed, Superman's direction wasn't shaped by the creatives, but the executives already. The producers wanted a sequel with Brainiac and Supergirl, but Warner Brothers wanted Richard Pryor, who absolutely disappears into his role as Gus Gorman.
Oh, you don't know about me and him?
Subsequently, Margot Kidder's role was downsized into basically just being the bookend for the story because she publicly defended Donna. So in comes Annette O'Toole as Lana Lang, all while Richard Lester helms the whole thing again. Therefore, the ratio between mythical and whimsy has moved completely to the point of no return. The opening, which features escalating wacky stuff, goes on for so stupidly long that I genuinely considered my life choices. On one hand, I appreciate the bold confidence of immediately stating things are being done your way, but all this irony breaks down the careful equilibrium of sincerity that allowed Donner's Superman to carry so much more grandiosity and prestige.
I've gotta try, damn it, I've gotta try something. Anything.
The first two Superman movies, despite being decades and decades old now, they have a modern energy to them, from the pacing to simply the camera work. But now Superman 3 feels properly dated. I mean, just look at how all the energy that was in the Daily Planet is gone. Superman 3 instead coasts by going through the motions, through celebrity gimmicks, and an aimless plot that's all about fear of computers. The whole ordeal ends up feeling completely clueless because the artistry that came from before, came from a strong voice and opinion, is now displaced by studio executives guessing what to do and what should we do. And the answer, I guess, is just let Richard Pryor do his thing in the most awkward scenes possible.
You sit on molded plastic seats!
Every scene with Gus Gorman is so bad because I'm waiting for a more clever punchline and it never happens. Like him drinking with Brad with a stupidly big hat. I genuinely feel like I'm wasting my time while watching this. However, some good ideas slip through. Rather than positioning Superman in for another great emotional threshold, instead we just check up on him in a slice of life casual journey, where he wants to write a story about his high school reunion as a case study of how a city person can come home to a small town. As a result, he ends up reuniting with Lana Lang after a lot of life has passed. Martha has passed away, and Lana is a single mother who has to deal with Brad trying to get with her.
Oh, look.
In a town filled with so many men who are either inbred or already married, here's Clark, the guy who went and made something with his life, while she's only staying in Smallville because of her son, while she's struggling to stay afloat as things get more expensive. So she clearly begins to fancy Clark as he fits into a good father figure immediately, and he also invites her to Metropolis. She asks if she could make it, and he offers his help.
I don't think you could ever be a nuisance to me.
Therefore, she likes him so much that Clark has to eat dog food in order to avoid talking about it. There's a nugget of a great idea here, where Clark is the central focus, a man returning to his roots and getting to bring his wisdom back home to share. What the film does best is just simply let you live with Clark for a whole film almost.
That could be dangerous, Jimmy. Danger?
Anyway, famously at the halfway point, Superman turns evil because of the artificial kryptonite Richard Pryor made. Lana's son still believes in Superman despite his alcoholism, and it's these words which allows Clark to reassert himself in a fight in the junkyard. On its own, it's just a cool scene, but as a sequence of films, Clark has transitioned from being a persona used for Superman to becoming the anchor which is regulating Superman's persona. The humble words which Jonathan spoke of, the hubris that characterized all the villains from before, this moment is to an extent a climax between these two forces within Clark, and how he avoids being like the people he fights. Clark wins and fixes everything and then beats the bad guys. This scene scared me as a kid. And finally, Clark goes to Lana to tell her Superman couldn't make it to her dinner, but he can fill his space instead, and she happily accepts. While back in the planet, as Lois enjoyed Clark's story, Lana now shows up as Perry White's new secretary. Superman 3 had bad reviews but still made some money, but the producers didn't have enough energy to make another Superman movie, so they went ahead and made Supergirl instead, which flopped. So Warner Brothers went to Canon Films, which dared to ask, how does Superman deal with nukes? This movie is so fucking cheap ass because Canon took the budget and then sneakily funded 30 other cheap ass movies and then demanded 45 minutes to be cut after a bad test screening, which meant what little money the movie had was wasted for scenes that never came to be, which then Canon apparently wanted to repurpose to make another cheap ass Superman 5.
What? I'm a genius.
It's genuinely a miracle that Christopher Reeve's legacy outshines all of this. Superman 4 opens with the worst trumpets I've ever heard and the worst credits I've ever seen, but then the actual first shots with the rockets doesn't look too bad. What's shocking is that you can cut out a lot of the worst flying shots and the scenes would still flow fine. Anyway, Superman 4 The Quest for Peace isn't completely devoid of substance. There's something oddly bittersweet and effective about how the story addresses how it's been almost 10 years since the story originally started. Time has passed, a big developer wants to buy the Kent farm and Clark is unwilling to sell it.
Anybody who buys it has to want a real farm. I don't think we need another shopping center.
Kal-El is not just all that's left of Krypton, but Clark Kent is all that's left of Smallville, of this life. And at the end of it, he's still eager to give away what he can, like his old baseball glove.
Will you be careful when you get back to Metropolis, Clark? It's a long, long way from where you were born.
Yes, sir.
Furthermore, the Daily Planet has failed to make money in the last 3 years, so it's gonna be turned into a tabloid. The boss's daughter, Lacey, is put in charge, but then she falls in love with Clark after he sincerely addressed the importance of cooperation, but also integrity.
Thank you.
What was previously neat in Superman 3 is now recycled to create the worst f***ing slapstick scenes ever between Clark and Lacey, while Superman treats Lois as like a toy by flying together only to take away her memories again. He does everything the same, like dropping her to rescuing her. It really makes him look like an asshole, but I guess the idea is that he's lost. The routines of the past merely offer temporary stability in the present, because this character from the 30s, who shined in the cynical 70s, now has no footing in the late 80s. What does an old-fashioned vision of truth, justice, and the American way mean in the age of greed being the ruling principle, where sensationalism is more important than information and truth?
We can't continue to be so irresponsible, otherwise we're going to lead everyone into a disaster.
A nuclear war can not only destroy a country, but the entire fucking world. So little Jeremy tasks Superman to do something about this, which he does, after it gets turned into a massive news story about Superman telling the kid to go fuck himself.
I just said I wish Superman would have said yes!
Everyone cheers when Superman declares he will rid the planet of nuclear weapons, but war profiteers are mad because they're out of business, so they agree to help Lex make Nuclear Man using a strand of Superman's hair. This whole plan actually works. Superman is beaten and is dying. There's an incredibly well acted scene where, in tears, Lois is still rooting for Superman, knowing he's trying his best. And while alone, these words makes Clark stronger. The weakened and dying Superman uses the last of another crystal's energy to restore his power, because we're recycling everything now. Superman wins. At the UN, he acknowledges there's not his choice to make regarding peace. Instead, people need to want it so badly that the government will give it to them.
Don't do it, the people!
Which is a very sweet but incredibly naive statement, because in reality the government knows exactly what the people want, they just don't care. But I like the way it rounds out the series with the line,
"We're still a young planet.
One day Earth can be like Krypton, but not today." I don't think Superman dealing with large-scale, real-world issues that we haven't solved is inherently a problem. Just because when the story is over it's still an issue in real life. Superman is a simple man, and sometimes our answers to complicated problems should be simple.
Effective immediately, I'm going to rid our planet of all nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons are bad, so we should agree to get rid of them. As a story, this film would be so much stronger and more meaningful if it actually showed how easy that thought process and action should be, where instead of realigning the film back with reality, which ends up giving the movie a really defeatist feeling, I say let Superman's own world cease to resemble our own, and let him change it, let it improve. Let it be a vision that we can model our own with, so we know what kind of reality to fight for. I'm saying this movie should have gone full f***ing Star Trek with this. Why couldn't it end with a world without nuclear weapons? A world where everyone is looked after.
And yet the Earth is threatened by the same fate as Krypton.
I'm rambling now, but the point is, Superman 4 could have really gone somewhere as a continuation of a story, which started with a vision of a heavenly world and a mythical version of the past, How cool will it be to look forward beyond our own, to create a fantastical, fictional future? But instead it hilariously picks a big topic that it doesn't really want to engage with or evolve around, and instead relies on tired cliches and slapstick to kill time. This whole fucking operation is a circle. The tragic story of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies is that they were made by passionate nerds, but then it was hijacked by the executives who made trash because they didn't really believe that what they had was always gold. So after Superman 4, Superman was considered lame ass. People had Lois and Clark, which was popular, but it wasn't exactly making the character cool outside of stay-at-home mums. But then 2006 was the time, and there was a real vibe around it. Superman was back. As a child, Brandon Routh's face was personally burned into my brain, probably because I cradled this hard plastic figure in bed so much. And the film came and went like a fart, where the franchise it promised never existed, which I guess is for the better because of Bryan Singer and Kevin Spacey's involvement. However, as a full-grown man who has to pay taxes now, I find myself strangely gripped by the film's restraint. For example, look at Superman's landing. It didn't have any Hans Zimmer-like bongs or any massive CGI sugar explosion. Instead, the impact comes from the power of small details. We focused on the table shaking, the radio being scrambled, and finally, Martha's reactions. Her surprise, her fear, and her joy. It's a confident few minutes that's focused on suspense over spectacle. Anyway, what matters in Superman Returns are the small details, in filmmaking and in themes. At its heart is a story about someone coming home and seeing how everything is the same but different, therefore not knowing if he's still relevant. Superman left 5 years ago in search for something more out there.
That place was a graveyard.
Therefore, he lost precious time with Lois, who learned to live a life without him. She's now engaged with Cyclops, who's also a journalist and pilot. They have a son, Jason, who has health difficulties, and she won a Pulitzer for a copium article about how the world precisely didn't need Superman. But without Superman, the world is in turmoil, and she lives in his shadow. However, Kate Bosworth was 22 here, so if 5 years had passed, then Superman would have gotten her pregnant at 17? Lois's bitterness stems entirely from a lack of farewell, but as Clark reveals, he also couldn't say goodbye because if he just simply saw her one more time, he wouldn't have left.
Clark said the reason you left without saying goodbye is because it was too unbearable for you.
Time is lost when you go looking to create a place that doesn't need to exist. It's Clark's lack of attention to the small details before leaving that makes living so much harder now.
Automobiles, every other paper in this town.
But what Superman does have are memories. Memories that are like gifts from the past that enriches his appreciation with the present. Like on the farm, it starts cold and silent, but the music slowly drifts in as he remembers what it was like to use super speed in discovering flight for the first time. Then when he's a creepy stalker and he overhears Lois not being in love with him, he finds himself again during his flight when he remembers Jor-El's advice to be the light to show humanity's way, since he can never be a human.
Even though you've been raised as a human being, you are not one of them. They can be a great people colour when they wish to be. They only lack the light to show the way. For this reason, above all, their capacity for good. I have sent them you, my only son.
In fact, Jor-El's words is what opens the film, which proclaims quite literally,
You will make my strength your own. You will see my life through your eyes.
Thus, it's through enacting the wisdom of Jor-El that he gets to live again through his son, and the son can see the world as his father did, without jealousy or wants. But then this is where Lex comes in. Lex Luthor is an angry man who steals time. He's able to take an old lady's fortune by showing her the life she missed. Presumably oral sex. And he hates Superman because he took 5 years of his life, so now he steals and profits from Jor-El's crystals by creating his own America with them. His plan is fucking bonkers and it doesn't make any sense. And there's also this really creepy bit where he pays special attention to Jason. Lex is both an opposite mirror for Superman and punishment for his neglect. Where Superman apologizes to Lois before sharing his powers so she can see the world as he does, Lex puts his own people in danger and forces everyone to live in his world, which ironically resembles Krypton, the very place Superman left to find. Anyway, Superman proceeds to get beaten up. He's drowned, he's kicked, he's stabbed. Even Lex's people are like, what the f have we done? This goddamn scene traumatized me as a kid. But it's all chill because Superman ends up throwing the island into space before falling back onto Earth like he did in the beginning of the movie. Time is something that can be cruel in Superman Returns. Characters who don't pay attention to the details are punished. But also, time isn't indifferent. It rewards those who share and spend it with people. Superman got over his pain by saving people, including Parker Posey, who then takes away the crystals from Lex, dooming him to cannibalism. He saves Cyclops, who then doesn't see him as a rival anymore, and as much as Clark was scared of being alone and couldn't find anyone else like him, he's rewarded with a son in the end, who then also saved his 22-year-old mom by killing a dude with a piano. And it's the news of his existence that Superman's heart begins to move again. The film closes with Superman visiting Jason, where without the crystals now, Superman is the only record of all of this knowledge of the past, and he gives it to his son, repeating the same words Jor-El gave him, the same words which helped guide Clark, that told him everything will be okay when he feels alone and heartbroken.
Sometimes you will feel like an outcast, but you'll never be alone. You will make my strength your own. You will see my life through your eyes, as your life will be seen through mine.
Clark, the universe is a big place, and you don't know who's out there. And even if you are the last, you're not alone.
However, infamously, despite running at 2.5 hours, Superman never throws a single punch, and this is where Man of Steel comes in to rectify this. Man of Steel, 2 words when spoken still creates a massive, passionate division, despite being a decade later. Is it a masterpiece, or is it poo-poo? Is it deep or shallow? Realistic or supposed to be cartoony? But to fully understand why the film is what it is, you have to put it in context with the rest of Superman's filmography. The last Superman film was remembered for being a boring piece where he stalked his ex and gets beaten up. As a result, Man of Steel, like the Incredible Hulk to Ang Lee's Hulk, is a form of deliberate brand course correction, where instead of having beautiful trumpets singing the past away, it's got crazy Hans Zimmer violins jamming away. Instead of being a movie where Superman never throws a punch, he punches everyone. Instead of throwing a kryptonite island in space, the entire Earth is being turned into Krypton. Man of Steel's main purpose is to be neither nostalgic nor boring. However, in the pursuit of being modern and cool, it completely lost sight of being a movie about Superman. Instead, it's a heavy metal sci-fi first contact alien invasion film, which then amassed a completely separate rabid fanbase. In the context of this film, Superman isn't really a character, but an idea. Just look at the most important turning points in his story arc, and how the direction actively avoids presenting his POV. When he finds Jor-El, who recounts everything we saw in the beginning, this scene is more about Jor-El because we know as much as he does.
Eventually, our military leader, General Zod, attempted a coup.
We feel his pride in reuniting with his son, while Clark has no opinion over finding out he's a fucking alien given a mission. He doesn't freak out, he doesn't grow from being an impulsive young boy to a wise adult. All that matters is Jor-El's mission lives on, and that opening 15 minutes has a purpose. In the priest-scene everyone makes fun of, the entire arc of the interaction isn't framed on Clark, but on how the priest transforms from being deeply afraid to seeing Clark's resemblance to Jesus and becomes inspiring. If this was from Clark's POV, it would have focused on Clark's reaction to seeing his fear, then how he's inspired by overcoming it. There is of course the flashbacks that gives insight into Clark's childhood, but unlike Batman Begins, it's not designed to immerse you into his trauma, where we begin with a broken man without purpose, but as he's mentored, he literally reassembles his own memories to create the motivational foundations for Batman. In contrast, when we're introduced to Clark, he's already saving people. The flashbacks are used to show how he hasn't changed, in fact. He's always helped, in spite of what Jonathan said. Furthermore, his death, unlike Bruce's parents, isn't trauma in need of meaning making, it's a confident story Clark uses to convince Lois not to run her story. So, no offense to Deborah Snyder, she seems like a nice lady, but Man of Steel doesn't make Clark relatable because it's not about him. What Superman actually is more of an abstract concept who echoes as opposed to a character who has thoughts and opinions. When Superman meets his people and they're a bunch of assholes, there's no emotional crisis, he doesn't even think about siding with them, and when he kills Zod, he's sad, but he moves on.
What kind of planet am I from?
I found him.
It's you who decides what kind of a life you're gonna lead. Not me, not your mother, not your...
My parents. My people.
What if it's part of who I am? Is that the kind of person I will become?
I know where I come from now.
Clark Kent, you're here to be a force for good, not a force for evil. But how can you be so sure?
I'm so happy for you, Clark.
Because I am your father. I raised you, and I know you better than anyone.
And I think, and Henry as well, it's such an iconographic thing, it's like you're going to play Superman. it's abstract, you know, you're like, what does that mean?
It's why Zack Snyder loves talking about cinematic markers and Turkish Airlines.
Turkish Airlines.
Anyway, an unavoidable aspect of the themes that I gotta discuss is obviously the Randian coding. Ayn Rand is a right libertarian philosopher famous for arguing selfishness made society better. Oddly enough, Joey from Friends neatly summarizes why.
What about you having those babies for your brother? Talk about self.
What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, it was a really nice thing and all, but it made you feel really good, right?
Yeah, so?
Well, it made you feel good, so that makes it selfish. Look, there's no unselfish good deeds, sorry.
Whereas she argued societies built on altruism leads to authoritarianism because it demands the individual to put others first, which the state can decide. As a result, Ayn Rand's book is built around promoting the idea that some men are just simply better, the elite, the geniuses, the industrialists. They represent the idea where profit, innovation, and rationalism are the highest expression of free will. So, as individuals, they deserve their power and wealth, while everyone else are mediocre or leeches, which is why Ayn Rand is a staunch supporter of the government staying out of the elite's way. The free market should be completely self-regulated, and everything should basically be privatized. And speaking as someone in a country with free healthcare but privatized trains, no f***ing thanks. The irony in this bukkake celebration of unchallenged individual authority is that it also loops back around to authoritarianism, because it follows the logic of the strong should lead and the rest should follow, or at least get out of the way. There's no moral obligation to care for others. Inequality is the deserving fate of the unearned. The vulnerable and the disabled don't have a place, unless hopefully someone rich will voluntarily look after them. If not, well, I guess it's their fault.
Yeah, well, sorry to burst that bubble, Phoebes, but selfless good deeds don't exist.
Zack Snyder is known for liking Ayn Rand. He's actively wanted to adapt Fountainhead.
I had a big meeting one time on Fountainhead. People were like, do you want to make that into a movie? And I was like, wow, I'm a big fan of the book, but I was like, I honestly don't know how to do it.
However, he's also very clearly clarified that his connection isn't political, it's more creative, since he's gone on record many times to clarify that he's left-leaning, and he sees Ayn Rand's philosophy as being kind of naive.
He does have that kind of comic book heroic, there is a naivete to her philosophy that I always feel like maybe my first brush with the idea of this Renaissance Superman came from her. And I kind of went backwards.
Kind of went backwards is the key word in that Zack Snyder interview from 3 years ago before Man of Steel. But you can trace the idea of the heroic individual untethered by conformity within Man of Steel. On a broad thematic level, personal choice is at the center of the greater conflict. Krypton had a caste system that dictated everyone's purpose from birth. Therefore, without individuals innovating, they literally f***ing blew up. And as Jor-El said,
what if a child dreamed of becoming something other than what society had intended for him or her?
So he gives his naturally born son the freedom to choose. But also, like an Asian parent, he's not just happy that he's alive, he's gotta force him to be successful. He's gotta be a leader who inspires humanity.
So you want us to bomb them?
While Zod is a dude who has nothing except for his servitude to the Kryptonian state, even after it's destroyed. However, I don't think either of these points are especially Randian because Zod believes in eugenics.
Sever the degenerative bloodlines that led us to this state.
What is baffling is Jonathan Kent, who basically teaches Clark to be completely apathetic and prioritize his own safety and secrets more than other people's lives, including children. Then he forces Clark to let him die, so his son would learn to continue to defy his own altruistic instincts. Therefore, the death isn't a lesson of humility where Clark learns he can't save everyone, because there are some things he just can't stop, like a heart attack. But it's that even if he can save everyone, he shouldn't do it if it risks his own interests. In this case, his secrets. Jonathan literally says,
and even if it takes you the rest of your life, you owe it to yourself to find out what that reason is.
The key word being owe it to yourself, like the only person he should consider within his actions is his self-interest.
Just let him die.
Yeah, well, sorry to burst that bubble, Phoebes, but selfless good deeds don't exist.
As a result, Man of Steel is a very philosophically confused film. You've got a main character who's not really a character, he's a symbol, but what he symbolizes is a direct contradiction of his own premise. Superman should always put other people first, but he can't do that here. He has to represent putting yourself first, and it's all seemingly because Zack Snyder just thought it would be kinda cool and shocking.
Turkish Airlines.
However, you could argue moderation comes in the form of how the rest of DCEU Superman's appearance develops. In Batman v Superman, he just ignores Martha Kent's rambling about how he doesn't owe anyone anything, and despite how clearly unhappy he is helping people, he still does it anyway, because his entire arc is about considering other people's value.
Perry, when you assign a story, you're making a choice about who matters and who's worth it.
Whereas the antagonist of the story, especially in the Ultimate Edition, is Batman, who spends more time killing people than helping, but out of guilt, he stops being selfish and lives in the name of Superman's honor. So into Justice League, it's literally about a community of people coming together, benefiting from each other. Arthur has to stop being selfish and think about other people. Cyborg accepts that he's not alone. Flash is motivated by the fact that he's making his father proud by being a member of the best. Batman is just happy to be putting all of his faith into everyone but himself, and Diana is there to help shepherd everyone. Clark lives for Lois. There's even a moment after Superman's resurrection where he returns to the Kryptonian ship, and the voices of his fathers echo, culminating in Jor-El's new line telling his son to love humanity as his parents loved him. In Zack's vision, we go from a story about doing the right thing as long as you put yourself first. Then it's about putting that individualism into an accountable place so everyone can learn to live for each other.
Well defended and well said, sir. We got another question right now. Who's this one for, Radio Room? This one's for Henry, who's standing by going, am I still on TV with these guys? Henry, we got a question for you. Alone in the Fortress of Solitude. Oh, it's a Twitter question. It's not a video question. Here we go. So listen up. In the film, Henry,
I'm not doing BVS because my original video essay involving theory culture and media power is still the best video I've ever made, and since I don't have any official footage for James Gunn's Superman, this section is going to be more rough. I'll eventually go through the film with a fine-tooth comb. Anyway, Superman had strayed so far away from what made him special for multiple decades, so now that the nerds are in charge again, traditional Superman is back, and what's neat about James Gunn's approach is that he's aware of the public's increased literacy rate regarding this whole genre. So he went ahead and structured the film like a random comic issue, set in a fully realized world with a history set before and more stories hinted forwards. Not necessarily just to set up a wider universe, but to observe Superman at his most fully realized, on a mundane day-to-day level. Therefore, like Creature Commandos, instead of focusing on an arc, it's about building an understanding with the character. In this case, by spending a week with Superman. The secret sauce that gives the outlandishness an authentic feeling is the organicness. I love the Kent farmhouse. It's a one-storied small house with a few cows and a front bench that can barely fit 2 people. And just from that one image, it tells you so much. In contrast to the Donna version, this Kansas isn't mythical, and unlike the Snyder version, the Kents aren't played by celebrities. They look like normal people, fat, bold, and frail. And it's that frailty we understand precisely who this Superman is. This family didn't have much when they adopted this child, but they have a lot of love for those in need. Their first thought seeing this baby wasn't, oh my god, do we have room for him? Or is he here illegally?
I'm an illegal immigrant, Mom. You've been harboring me for over 17 years.
But how this child deserves a home. So they made space for him. So of course, when this kid grows up, his first thought would be to look after other people, and he'd be so happy with so little, wanting more in life wouldn't be on his mind. Furthermore, I also just love how this version of Lois feels so realized in such a short amount of time. She used to be a rocker and nowadays needs an absurd amount of sugar in her coffee to make the taste bearable. Therefore, we understand that beneath her learned behavior as a professional are very fiery feelings, which Superman stirs. But because he's so passionate, she compensates his short-sightedness. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor is driven by envy. He hates that this alien has taken his attention, and he can't tolerate decency because it simplifies the world down to right or wrong actions. The mark Superman has left the world has rendered his profits and personal gain meaningless, because all that matters is help everyone, even if you're not allowed to. So even when America is frightened of Superman's true alien motive, the people in the Middle East he tried to save will still call for his name. The Justice Gang will get up and try to help as he did, and Lex is toppled because people know the truth. The point is, your choices is what makes you who you are, as Jonathan Kent spoke of. And kindness, even when it's unpopular, is something he always commits to. Superman thrives in times of crisis because in uncertain times, people get used to compromising what's right and wrong. People will turn on each other. People can give up on the fight for the compassionate thing because things get too complicated. But Superman's very existence is a declaration that things should be simple. everyone does have a greater purpose for other people. Individual happiness isn't all that matters, because we're never alone. The young isn't nutrition for the old. Fighting for kindness sometimes is punk, and simple is hard. But sometimes, simple is what we need. Don't overthink it.
Now I'm going to give you one last chance to stop acting like Nazi stormtrooper.
Seen the beauty of your many cultures. I felt great joy in your magnificent accomplishments.
Who are you to tell us what to do? All I'm telling you is that that little creature in there has as much right to live as you do.
Secretary, I don't represent any country, but I'd like to address the delegates.
But somewhere out there, you have another father too who gave you another name.
I think that was a mistake by James Gunn to say, you know, it's an immigrant thing. And
We just need a quick look at your green card.
Green card.
You are an alien, are you not?
So this was the Superman Films video. I think it's official. I hate making longer videos because this should have come out last month, but I just kept tinkering with it. Even though Superman the movie, Superman Returns, and Man of Steel were all videos I'd done individually, and now I've kind of redrafted them to fit into this new video, I just kept tinkering with it, and it's a nightmare rewatching this over and over and over and over again. I will, as I said, will do an entire dedicated video on the James Gunn Superman movie and really kind of go through every sort of scene with a fine-tooth comb, so look forward to that in the far future. The next video that I'm really kind of putting my foot down is the Justice League action video. Remember that show? Yeah, I'm doing on that. Anyway, a special thanks to my patrons, especially Benign But Clever Alias, Bluest Things, Marsha Rather, Chad Smith 1, Stanley Lamb, Braden Jared, The Critic of Innocence, Malpertius, Rebecca Snowhair. You guys rule in particular.
I'm an illegal immigrant, Mom. You've been harboring me for over 17 years.
Well, join with me in making this country great again.
Again?
Like back in the days of slavery.
In particular,